of Products by Yes, we are recording. So if you do feel free to, I mean, this session is going to be recorded and we will be sharing it via our YouTube channel. So don't feel pressure to kind of like take notes or anything at this point of time. Sit back and relax the session. So yeah, we are Products by Women. We've been around for about 2 years. We are a global diverse community, making jobs, training opportunities, and mentorship available and accessible to all. With that, I'd really like to thank Relativity and the entire crew that's here with us today to really be here and make these opportunities available to our entire community. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we do get started, just wanted to share some quick highlights about what we've been up to, year to date so far. Through our community, we've made learning accessible to over 12,000 members. By opportunities, I mean that we've hosted events like these specific to skill-based learning, jobs, training opportunities. So that's incredible. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of our community, because without you guys, this is not possible. We've hosted tons of events. We've made mentorship opportunities available. We've hosted a lot of, published a lot of articles, and also launched a bunch of podcasts. So do check it out. And if you want to be a part of any of what we're doing, you can email us at info@productsbywomen.com, and we'll be sure to kind of loop back with the next steps. Our next event is in collaboration with Design Buddies on building and scaling brands. And it's specifically going to be focusing on physical products. So do check it out. It's on productsbywomen.com. And in addition to a lot of other events, including masterclass on angel investing and a bunch of other things. So yeah, do take a look at that. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and pass it to Jenny. She has a bunch of slides prepared and to talk more about relativity. So Jenny, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today, and thanks to the Products by Women team for hosting this event. My name is Jenny Holloway. I work on the employer brand team here at Relativity. I'm just going to give a quick introduction and overview about what our company does, and then I'll turn it over to the panel where we'll talk a little bit more about our product and engineering teams. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Can everyone see that okay? Awesome. So yeah, at Relativity, our mission statement is to organize data, discover the truth, and act on it. And how we do that, and more about what our software does. So Relativity is an end-to-end e-discovery platform designed to help users organize data, discover the truth, and act on it. The Relativity platform is used by thousands of organizations around the world to manage large volumes of data and quickly identify key issues during litigation, internal investigations, and compliance projects. And then a little bit more about just highlights about our company. So we were actually founded in 2001, and our headquarters is in Chicago. And we've actually recently moved to a hybrid work model. So we actually have employees all over the world working remote, as well as a few office locations in New Jersey, London, Poland, Hong Kong, and Melbourne. We have over 1,500 employees and over 300,000 enabled platform users. And then our product, Relativity, is available in 49 countries, and our cloud-based solution, Relativity One, is available in 14 countries and growing. And then we are building a culture where great people get great rewards, from learning and growth opportunities to benefits that will help you live your best life. So we need a happy and healthy team to succeed. So we make sure to take care of our employees in more ways than one. And you can see just a few benefits highlighted on the screen, including 2 holiday breaks per year, unlimited time off, flexible work arrangements, and more. And then just a bit more about some of our programming, and that we believe inclusion, diversity, and belonging come together. Our team around the world can do amazing teams and build a bright future. We truly believe that you need all three to shine, and you can see on the screen a little bit more about what inclusion, diversity, and belonging, or IDB, means to us. And after this quick intro, I'll share the link to our website that has more information about just our IDB programming, as well as our community resource groups. And then a bit more about our internship program. So Relativity aims to foster a community of belonging amongst interns, and this is through various programming such as social events, development sessions, meet and greets with executives, and more. So interns will really be fully immersed into teams where they'll be assigned real world projects and tasks. And then you'll also be working with a mentor just to make sure you're getting the most out of your experience. And then we have a bit more information about the qualifications of candidates to be an intern. And those positions are available in the US and Krakow, Poland. And the program will be remote this year. And then just a bit of our available positions that we are featuring during this event. I know I just talked a bit about our internship program. We do have a software internship, or software engineer internship for this summer, which that is linked here. And then a lot of other positions on our product and engineering team. So definitely recommend checking these out on our website to learn more about the roles and read the job descriptions. And I will say we have actually over 150 roles posted on our website. So even if you might be interested in another area, definitely encourage you to check those out there. And then last but not least, stay connected with us. So definitely follow us on LinkedIn and our other social accounts to just learn more about our available positions, what it's like to work at Relativity, and then just other information. But yeah, and with that, I think I will turn it over to the panel. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That was amazing. And again, this information is captured and we will be sending it via email. So do keep an eye out for that. You don't have to take any notes through the session. Some general housekeeping before we do get started. Ramona is going to be dropping a bunch of information, including a networking sheet. So feel free to follow each other and connect with each other through this session. If you do have any questions, do drop it in the chat box. We will be making some time towards the end and you can pose your questions directly to the speakers here today. And lastly, there is some information about our Slack channel that Ramona is going to be posting as well. So do connect with over 1,700 women in product, data, and business and engineering through this session. And some general announcements. We are going to be closing out the 2021 Excellence Awards tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day for nominations or to apply. So do check it out. And with that, I actually really want to just kick off our session today and introduce you to all our panelists. We have with us some incredible speakers. Desiree, we have Liz, and then we have Rashmi and Andrea from Relativity, which is amazing. And I guess my very first question to all of you is to probably just do a quick intro and talk to me a little bit about what's your favorite part about working at Relativity? And perhaps, Liz, maybe you can kick it off and then we can have everybody do a quick round robin.
Sure, absolutely. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, so just maybe like a quick background on me first. Hi, everybody, I'm Liza. I'm a senior manager in engineering at Relativity, and I work in the platform vertical. So we do all of the underlying systems required for developers, both internal and external, to build on top of our Relativity platform. And in terms of what I love most about working with Relativity, I think is sort of the dynamic nature and the fast-paced environment. That's good and bad, right? Because it means there's definitely chaos and every day is exciting. But what that has meant for me personally and for everyone that I think a lot of people that I've worked with is that ability to learn and grow quickly, change, on the fly, and really make sure that you're making the most of your career.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Rashmi, do you want to go next?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rashmi, Senior Program Manager at Relativity, where I manage AI program for the company. I have more than 18 years of experience in working in an engineering organization, and I've been part of Relativity for almost 8 years now. Prior to becoming a program manager, I was heading quality assurance for the analytics vertical, overseeing all the QA team activities. So yeah, what I love working here at Relativity, with every feature that we build and ship, we are living our mission, that is organizing the data, discovering the truth, and acting on it. For me, at a high level, there's alignment between personal and company values. I enjoy our company culture, opportunities for professional development, growth, working with smart, innovative people, And most importantly, we have good work-life balance.
That's awesome. And let's dig a little bit deeper into that in a bit. But I also want to kind of hear from Desiree and Andrea. So Desiree, do you want to go next?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I am Desiree Mayer. I am a Senior Director of Product here at Relativity, where I oversee our developer platform. So I actually work very closely with Liza. And so the solutions that we build, that includes everything from our administrator to our extensibility solutions. And I lead a global team of product managers that's responsible for executing on Relativity's cloud strategy. So a little bit about myself. I promise this isn't going to be long-winded. So my career has spanned primarily in product management, managing large, complex enterprise solutions within fintech and the legal tech space. And prior to Relativity, I was a general manager at a fintech firm here in Chicago, where I manage a global product P&L for commodities and energy business. So now on to your question. So what I love about working at Relativity. So if I could only pick, let's see, 3 things: the people, the culture, and I think really the core values that we have here at Relativity, and our vision to power the pursuit of justice. So if I can make this a little bit more personal as an example, so everyone here that I work with Relativity truly embodies that core values, and everybody goes above and beyond to help each other out and make everybody feel welcome. So as an example, when we switched to like remote learning, I know this feels like it's such a long time ago, but during the height of the pandemic, it's actually 6 months into the job for me at Relativity. And I really felt like there was a very strong support system for new parents as they were trying to manage both, remote work and remote learning at the same time. And Relativity has a ton of resource groups, and Jenny mentioned this, where you really feel supported and you have the resources in place to help you succeed. And on the culture side, we have a very transparent and open feedback culture where you really feel valued, and at the same time, you really know exactly where you stand. And I think feedback culture is very important, particularly when it comes to career growth and development.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And moving on to Andrea. Andrea, I'd love to hear from you on, a quick intro followed by what's your favorite thing about working at Relativity.
Sure. I'm Andrea Beckman. I'm a senior director on the product team. Been at Relativity a little over 10 years, so quite a while, since we're a little like 200-person company. And I oversee some of our main areas of the product in document review and artificial intelligence. In terms of what I like the most about Relativity, I would say it's the transparency of the organization and the collaborative nature. So, transparency from the top down, like you hear all hands every month, what's going well, what's not going well. And you really feel, especially like in this remote world, connected with the organization and having like a true pulse of actually how we're doing as a business. So I really like that, as well as just everyone's really collaborative with each other. There's not a lot of ego. People are just kind of working together towards the same common goals.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I guess my follow-up question to you is, let's talk a little bit about what your day looks like at Relativity. I mean, if you can walk us through your typical day or your typical day for your team members, that'll be a great overview for our attendees today.
Sure. So like a typical day in product management, I think I'll say a typical week. So you can only fit so much in a day, but one of the great things I like about product is you get to do such a variety of things. So I've been in product for over 20 years, and I love the fact that every day looks different. You could be talking with customers one day, understanding their needs, sharing like the big picture roadmap, or deep diving into like one particular feature and showing them screenshots with your user experience counterparts and getting feedback. You'll be working with your development team to organize your sprint activities. What are the stories you're going to work on? What are the detailed acceptance criteria that make this work complete and valuable to our customers? Prioritizing things. You could be working with marketing about the messages. So what benefits do these features have that we're developing? Let's get the right messages out there. And then again, as I mentioned, it's a really collaborative culture. So often you'll be working with a small group of product folks, UX folks, development folks. We call it your triad that you kind of are hand in hand with throughout the whole working relationship.
Awesome. And I actually want to pass this on to Rashmi next, because I want to understand more about how program works at Relativity and how it really differs from product, or how do you work together? How do you work differently? So over to you next.
Yeah. Like Andrea said, it's a collaborative environment. Program managers work collaboratively with the engineering organization and product folks, and basically build that transparency and that type of culture. It's a fun and challenging job. It's fun because you get to do a lot of different things. It's challenging because of the same reason. You do a lot of different things. Every day is different, but some fundamental aspects of the role still remains. The main key factor of program management is to make sure there are no blockers and everything is integrated. All projects are running smoothly. The program is running smoothly. So basically trying to make sure that the program runs smoothly, talking with stakeholders, and yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And Liza, next over to you. What does your typical day really look like? And talk to me a little bit about how you collaborate or partner up with product teams within Relativity.
Yeah, absolutely. So the life of a developer is, I'm going to echo again, similarly very collaborative. We operate in agile rituals, 2-week sprints. And so every morning you have a stand up with your team and you kind of talk about what happened the day before and then what you're going to be working on in the upcoming day. And then as part of that, might hop onto a Zoom meeting with another colleague to troubleshoot a problem or to unblock a piece of code that you're working on. Definitely very close collaboration with product as you guys are as you're refining the next stories that are coming up, talking about bigger picture, what the roadmap looks like for 2022, what are our priorities. And so it's definitely a very integrated team across product and engineering, and then at times with program management, depending on kind of the nature of what you're working on.
Awesome, thank you. And Desiree, is there anything that you'd like to add on that will probably give us a better idea of what product looks like at Relativity?
Yeah, I think Andrea covered it well. Like, every day could be very different. One day you could be working on something very tactical with your team. The next day you could be pitching your next big idea to our executive team, and you're talking about big picture. So it's a very rewarding job, and it's very exciting and action-packed for sure.
Awesome. And, I'm going to kind of pull up some questions that came in from our, some of the registrations, but I'd like to spend some time talking about like early career product management, and for anyone who's looking for an APM program or internship specifically at Relativity. Do you guys have any tips specifically there? And Andrea, maybe you want to start here?
Sure. I think it's about figuring out the type of work you want to do. So for example, if it's product work, and do that type of work. So it doesn't have to be through a formal job. It can be through a school organization, a class project, or any sort of like alliance you have with local businesses. I've interviewed plenty of interns that take me through some of those projects, and it's just as if it's real, world experience. They may be working with somebody to refine a website or build out requirements for this, mock product that they're bringing to life. And so really they're demonstrating the capabilities in their work. And then as you get prepared for your interview, think about those experiences. Maybe there's 3 or 4 that you really want to highlight, jot down some of the bullets, like the things you learned and all of that. And you can bring that to the interview and be prepared for the questions. We don't try to do any like tricks or crazy questions in interviews. It's just like trying to understand your experience. So I think, at least for me, it usually helps if I jot down my bullets of what I want to say. So you're better prepared to explain those experiences you gained in your interview.
Awesome. I had a specific question about hypergrowth companies. So what does that mean? And how does one kind of identify what a hypergrowth company is, or does a startup have the potential to convert into a hypergrowth company? Anybody who wants to jump in here? Liza, do you want to start off with this one?
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the characteristics of a hyper-growth company, there's obviously like some very hard numbers around growth and revenue and things like that, but more about, I think, how the culture feels. I think there's a level of dynamic sort of excitement that you feel at a hyper-growth company, in terms of, things are always changing. The prioritization is key because there's so much that you could possibly do. And so you have to kind of be ruthless about what you focus on. And so I think looking for some of those ideas and looking for some of those characteristics when you're looking at companies, talking to people about like, how often is your day-to-day consistent versus changing? What kind of technologies are you working on? Are they cloud technologies that are at the forefront? Are they working on like more antiquated systems? Like starting to ask some of those questions to get a feel for it, I think can give you maybe even a better sense than just some of the hard numbers.
That's such a good explanation of what a hypergrowth company would do. Rashmi, would you like to add on here? And if anybody else would like to pitch in, that'll be great as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there are a lot of advantages to join a hypergrowth company. Plenty of opportunities for individual growth along with the organization's growth. I find that really motivates people being able to step up and actually take things to the next level. There's a great sense of ownership that we create when every success of the company feels like your success. It's just significant opportunities to grow, and you get so much exposure with various experiences, challenges, new environments, and better recognition as well. And the networks that you build early in your career at hypergrowth companies are often the most important ones. So yeah.
I had a follow-up question for you, Rashmi, which is, and kind of ties to a question that just came in about how does a hypergrowth company support career growth, and what does mobility really look like within? Is it fluid, or does a person just kind of get bucketed into? Like, my question is mainly around, like, is it like more like a startup, or is it more like a larger company? Any thoughts on that?
Right. So it's neither a startup, neither a super large company. That's why we are a hypergrowth company, where there is so much agility, and since we are agile, we're constantly working on latest technologies. That means that you got to build your skill sets, and Relativity offers so much and gives so much importance, and all the execs, leaders are so much incredibly supportive of building people's skill set, talent. So there's so much opportunities to grow. Personally, I took a plunge from QA to program management by building my skill set, taking the training that we have in house, be it LinkedIn training or plural site training, or even if need to be outside training. So there are many, and we have amazing talent management at Relativity, which put a ton of effort into all of this.
That's incredible. And then Desiree, I just had a follow-up question for you specific to skill development. Do you have any thoughts on like how product teams specifically, because requirements keep changing, processes, tools keep changing, especially for product people. Any emphasis on what kind of career growth opportunities exist internally at Relativity for people like specific to product to kind of excel at their job or set them up for success?
Sure. I actually do have 2 opportunities and 2 roles that I have open within my team for a product manager for our developer platform for our hosting framework, as well as for our developer platform in starting up our eventing and orchestration. So in terms of like getting prepared to apply to any product manager role, I think to prepare for it is to truly understand, number one, what products and services is that specific company or that hypergrowth company you're applying for, and is it aligned with what you want to do? And to prepare for specifically the requirements for that, understanding the skill set that you need. So specific to the roles that I'm looking for a right balance between like business and technical acumen, and in making sure that you're, for a hypergrowth company, and I've mentioned this, is that you're able to adapt to change as well, and you're able to quickly learn. And getting prepared for learning, on the job is great, and making sure that you access all of the training materials if you're internal at Relativity that Rashmi mentioned, everything from plural site training. We have LinkedIn Learning as well, and also being able to shadow other people. So Relativity is a great place where if you're interested in something else, perhaps that isn't even within the current remit that you're doing at your job, and you want to learn more, it is easy to connect with a mentor or connect with somebody else that's doing that job, and really asking them questions and even understanding and shadowing what do they do on a day-to-day basis, and what specific roles or in specific traits that you need to develop yourself to get to that next job.
Thank you so much. And everyone, if you're interested in this specific role, please do reach out directly to Desiree on LinkedIn, or send us your resume. We'll put it in the right hands, or just apply directly to Relativity. Anyone else would like to pitch in? Andrea, do you have any thoughts about skill development or career growth specific to your org?
Yeah, sure. And I see a question in the chat too about considering candidates beyond engineers. And we definitely do. In fact, I think it's only a small portion of our product managers that have engineering backgrounds. It's a portion of it, but there's tons of transferable skills. People with consulting backgrounds can be great. People with analytic or more like business analyst skills. Project management can work as well. So I think there's a whole host of skills that are applicable to a product type role. As you get more senior into the role, we kind of expect you to have product experience, but especially at more the entry level positions, applicable experience definitely works, as well as like any industry experience. So, even if you're looking at companies beyond ours, maybe if you're in that industry in a different role, I find it often easy to transfer, a different role in the same industry as well. So I think we look for kind of well-rounded people that have good communication skills, ability to learn, ability to work with teams well, contribute individually, but work well collaboratively. So yeah, I definitely think you don't need an engineering background to go into product, at least in our org and the ones I've been a part
of. That actually brings me to the next question is like, what is that specific trait or skill set that, you look for when you're hiring a person or screening a person in job interviews, apart from like, the typical loop and, you're going through the case studies and the motion, and like, what is it that you're really looking for specifically?
Sure. I can start off. Sure. Some of those things that I mentioned are so key to me. Communication skills is probably the first thing I notice. That's really key in product. Being able to have like a good, concise explanation that someone can understand from their perspective, not knowing your background, like providing the right level of context. And I think understanding how well you work with others. One of the little like small quirks I look for is how often people say I and we. I like a nice balance of both. Like, here's what we were trying to do, and here's what I did as a part of that. People that say I all the time, it's like, oh, like what did everybody else do? Or people that say we all the time, then I wonder what they did. So those are things I look for, just to understand one little clue into how they work with others. So those are some of the top things that are coming to mind in terms of what I look for when I interview.
Awesome. Thank you. Desiree, would you like to add on, or anybody else would like to add on about skills or traits, or, is there something specific that you look at, or are skills kind of overrated, and is it more of a cultural fit? What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with Andrea. So communication is definitely paramount. But the other thing I'd add to that is really being customer and data driven, being passionate about understanding data and making decisions based on data, and having a point of view and perspective on things. So I find that's a good indicator of a good product manager when you're that inquisitive and you really want to validate something.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And speaking about customer, engagement, or just kind of being more curious about being the voice of the customer or being a champion there, are there specific resources that you would suggest for anybody who's looking to prep and apply to jobs at Relativity that they can turn to? Any resources? Desiree, if you have any, maybe you can just kind of start there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So in terms of resources and prepping for a product manager job at Relativity, I recommend, particularly for a specific job that you want to learn more about, I think outreach to the hiring manager and outreach, for example, for me, if you're interested in the roles that I have posted, having that connection and chatting. But beyond that, there's obviously a lot of training materials out there available. I find LinkedIn Learning to be particularly helpful, and we have Pluralsight as well. If you have access to that, I found that's a great way to really start learning about specific concepts that you want to learn prior to an interview.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And the next question is for Liza. Liza, what is it that you look for when you are specifically kind of hiring software talent in your team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody early in their software engineering career, it's interesting. I think the like specific languages that you know or experience with certain types of technology are actually less important. We know that Relativity is a complex piece of software. We work with a lot of different technologies, and we don't expect you to come in as an expert. It's much more about your willingness to take on a challenge and not really be afraid of diving into the unknown and figuring out as you go and striking that right balance of digging in but asking questions and getting help. Sort of not having that, as we've said, as Desiree said, an inquisitive nature, being interested in learning and trying new things, and then kind of the ability to manage multiple things at once, prioritize your time, and kind of, as we've talked about, live and succeed in a dynamic environment. So I would say a lot of those skills become more important, and then we'll teach you the specifics of the relativity software when you get here.
That's awesome. I mean, speaking about prioritization, there's a question that just came in about how do you handle conflicts or reprioritization of tasks when communicating with a product manager? Like what
Yeah.
is your take on that?
Absolutely. So I think that like the relationship between an engineering manager and a product manager is one of the most important things for success of the team. And actually, any of my managers can tell you one of my pet peeves is when someone says, "Oh, well, that's product's problem," or like ask product. Like the two of you should be in lockstep every step of the way. And so I've actually found at Relativity, I haven't had a ton of conflict with like products wants X and engineering wants Y. In reality, I think we both bring our perspectives together and then usually have a healthy discussion about trade-offs and how to handle, a piece of tech debt versus a super hot incident versus, a feature that we need to get out to the door for the customer. So I think it's about bringing the data on what is the value and what are the trade-offs if we don't do this, and then kind of being willing to have an open and honest conversation. And I think usually from there, we're able to sort it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to start sprinkling in some questions that are coming in. And if that's okay, feel free to jump in. Whoever thinks they can take this question. How do you go about discovery process in the product team at Relativity? Desiree or Rashmi or anyone else who'd like to kind of pitch in here?
Sure, I can start. So we kind of start big picture with the problems we're trying to tackle. And try to really start there versus, sometimes you're quick to jump into the solution. So we use elements of design thinking to just start big picture, narrowing in. We actually are really fortunate in that we have customers who are super eager to talk with us on a really regular basis. They're really invested in improving the product because some of them are in that product every single day to do their job and really rely on it. And so once we've kind of gathered the big picture questions we're trying to ask, we usually interview some customers to get better understanding of their perspective. And from there, it kind of goes to more and more detail. So we might then go back, start making some mock-ups, start pulling things together so they have a visual to react to, and go from there into more specific requirements. But kind of the trick with product management is not to go straight to solution and straight to mock-ups. It's really easy to do that, but to start big picture, making sure we're grasping like end-to-end problems they're having so we can think through the whole thing and then like kind of narrow in on the slice that we want. And one other thing we try to do is much, I think Liza or somebody mentioned it, like iterative development. And so we try to release things in waves of functionality. So we get something out to the door to the customer in their hands. Hopefully they can take advantage of it and provide feedback. So it's kind of like an ongoing discovery process. Yes, you put out your MVP, your minimal viable products, and then you're going from there and iterating. And sometimes you get the best feedback once they actually have a chance to use it in their workflows, and they can kind of help you improve upon it.
Thank you. And then another question that I had specifically is like for anyone who's kind of coming in for those initial rounds at Relativity, what are some good questions they should prepare or ask at a hypergrowth company?
Yeah, I think it depends on what the insight is that they're trying to understand, right? I think if they're trying to understand, number one, just overall health of the company, and if it's a company that, when you asked earlier, is it something that has a strong enough vision to really stand a test of time and be a multi-billion-dollar company, then I think the questions need to focus on truly understanding the value proposition of that company, what its product strategy is and its vision, and then validating if it's a mission and vision-driven company to, again, stand that dynamic market landscape. But if it's more on culture fit, I would really focus questions around understanding day-to-day, what does that culture feel like, more from how do you collaborate with the team? How do you celebrate successes? How do you handle failures, et cetera? I think are great questions to ask.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else? Andrea, would you like to jump in here?
Yeah, I think those are good areas. And the one other area that I always like people to ask about is like to try and picture the role. When people don't ask questions about the role, I get a little scared because this should be like a two-way interview process.
Yeah.
You should be finding out as much as you can about the role to understand, like, does that fit with what you're looking for? Does it fit with your skill set? And so if people don't ask enough questions about the role, I wonder, like, are they really picturing themselves in this role and going to work as this every day? Like, do they understand what they're getting into? And so I really like to see people ask questions about the role and what it's like to actually be in it.
I love that. Thank you. And then one last question that I had prepared, and it's kind of in theme with some of the questions that are coming in, is what's next for Relativity? What are some projects or problems you guys are solving? And anybody is free to kind of jump in there and talk about what's exciting in each of your orgs.
I'll start. So since I'm the AI program manager, this is the year for AI for Relativity. We one of the main company goals is to emerge as an industry leader in AI. So we are putting tons and tons of efforts and hiring a lot of people with in engineering for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science, just to foster that and build all of the great technologies and empower that. So AI is a huge focus this year for the company.
Incredible. Thank you. Anybody else who'd like to jump in here?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any company, there's always, particularly for a hyper-growth company like Relativity, there's always tons of projects happening. I mean, I could name 20 projects that we're working on. But one of the other things that we're always doing is transforming everything from the way that we work, the way that we manage or scaling our infrastructure, manage scaling our processes, et cetera. So there's always tons of projects like that. One in particular that my team is working on, as I mentioned earlier, is our cloud strategy, really executing and making sure that we exceed the expectations of our clients in terms of the scale of our software. So there's tons of exciting projects that's related to that, and tons of like new kind of mini startups in the company that we're trying to develop as sort of next gen enduring solutions for the future as we set up for our next stage of growth. Everything from our reporting capabilities to what I mentioned earlier that I'm hiring for, which is our eventing and orchestration that's going to power our AI.
Awesome. And speaking about AI, is it a deal breaker for someone without that experience to be applying for those jobs coming in, or will Relativity actually invest in having the person or a product manager or an engineer actually be trained? Is that an option? Like, what's your take? You really don't have to have a specific answer if you don't want to. That's totally fine.
I would say there's a whole like breadth of roles available. And what do we have? 150 plus. There are some that require AI experience, like there's a handful, but it's not the majority that are on the website. There's plenty more. So I'd say if you want like a role that's in the AI area, in an area like you need to have data science background or something like that, yeah, that's going to be a hard requirement. But there's so many other roles that we have across the product. Like I work on a product that's about case strategy, which is really straightforward about like entering the story of your case and the key people and facts and everything like that. That has a pretty low learning curve, and I feel like it's appropriate for like most anybody in other areas, either product or engineering, that they could catch on to that product fairly easily without deep expertise in anything. Really, you just have to understand what are people and facts and how do you bring that to life.
Awesome. Love that. And then there's another question specific to like inclusivity. How do you promote inclusivity and in your decision making, coding, design, and within the organization? I love this question specific to like, product development, your daily work, like how anybody who wants to kind of give your take.
Yeah, I can maybe start thinking about kind of the coding, design, and sort of architecture. So I think as much as possible, we try to make engineering teams like super flat, like no hierarchy. So we want everybody's opinion on the team. They do, obviously, they're a mix of different levels, but as much as possible, we're doing a lot of collaborative design sessions, collaborative feature planning, collaborative problem solving. I think we really want all of those voices to be heard. We know that a diverse set of perspectives is going to ultimately build a better product. And so we really like to include everybody in those conversations to make sure that those voices are being heard as much as possible.
Thank you. That's amazing. And I guess I have one other question about like, what's the best way to apply for a job at Relativity? Like, should they be reaching out to any of you, or should they just be applying directly? Jenny, if you're here, then feel free to unmute yourself and jump in, or if anybody else has something to say here.
Yeah, I would definitely say to apply on our website. I know that list is current, so we're definitely always updating that to make sure that all those positions are live. So definitely the best way to apply is just do that through our website, which I actually just shared a link to our careers page in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. And Ramona, have I missed any incoming questions? Feel free to kind of call them out in case I have specifically missed your incoming chats.
I think you already asked that particular question, but I think I got one which was a direct message, which is question for hosts. I'm very interested in getting into tech. However, my bachelor's degree is not in computer science, business, math, etc., but in Spanish and Portuguese. Where should I start to dive in, start learning the essentials and get certified? It's overwhelming to see the options out there today. So what would be your advice on this?
I think in terms of, there's some courses out there in terms of, I didn't catch if it was an engineering role or a product role. I think for anything that you apply for, you want a mix of like coursework and on-the-job experience, and then maybe talking with people. And when I say on-the-job experience, I again refer to like, you could get that through like a class project. You could take a class. They often have like hands-on things that you could do with it. Internships, as long as you show the applicable skills, I think you can apply for them with pretty, you can apply for them with a Spanish degree and all of that, as long as you can demonstrate some of those skills we've been talking about. So I'd say like a combination of like, do a few courses in the area, try and get a little bit of experience through project type work. And then also making networks and connections. It doesn't, reach out to different people. Maybe you know somebody that knows somebody that's in the area. Start talking to different people. I know most of the referrals, or most of the people that we hire, a good portion of them are through referrals, whether you know somebody close or you just know them a little bit. It's always good to know somebody and start to build your network in the area that you're trying to go into. So I'd say it's like a kind of a mix of ways to tackle that.
And I would just like to add on to that. Find a club like Girls Who Code, whose mission is to close the gender gap in technology. They have amazing programs for different age groups, right? Or find a local chapter near you for girls in technology. So there are tons out there. That will help.
Any more questions, Ramona, that we are not really?
Yeah. One of the questions that I got, actually multiple times, do you hire international students? Is it for a particular role? Like when you're looking, if someone's interested, but it's on a visa, any insight on that would be helpful, because I think we have a few members in the audience who are internationals or on a visa.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I can answer that just from the recruiting side. So at this time, we are unable to sponsor OPT or student visas as we're not an E-verified company. However, we're continuing to assess the possibility of becoming E-verified in the future. So definitely, if you have any questions about that, please let me know, and I'm happy to share contact information with the recruiting team who can share more details about that too.
Awesome, thank you. There's another question. What is one thing you love as a product manager that creates meaning and purpose for the products you develop? This question is from Priyanka.
I can start there. I think one of the things as a product manager that I find kind of very rewarding is that immediate impact that you see on whatever you're building and that feedback that you have with your customer or your client. So as Andrea mentioned, we employ an iterative development process in Relativity. So you are building that product alongside with your customer, and you get immediate feedback right away if you're in the right direction. So I find that very rewarding and impactful.
Yeah, I definitely, to add to that, I agree with that completely. Like having these customers ask for these things and finally being able to get them in their hands and using it and saving them time so that they can do other things. That's really impactful. And then, you know, some particulars, our software is used in all sorts of ways you would probably never know, from like, you know, like the United Nations is using it for some really important work they're doing to investigate things. There's other people using it, you know, like in the capital case, there, you know, there's a lot of things and important work people are doing to basically get to the truth faster and get justice. And so I find that, like, in terms of a big picture, really rewarding too. So that our software can, you know, in some small way help get some justice there. So you kind of feel it on a personal level with like the people you interact with, and then we see all sorts of like wins and things that our customers are doing using our software.
And while Ramona is sifting through more questions, I actually I had the same question which just came in specific to. I'd love to hear from each of you on how you got into tech, product, engineering. It's usually, you know, especially like for me personally, I'm not a trained product manager. It's something that I actually picked up along the way, and I didn't study in products. So I'd love for you to kind of share like a quick, you know, journey or your path into product, into engineering, and yeah, that'll be great. Andrea, do you want to start off?
Sure. So I, undergraduate was in industrial engineering, decided I didn't want to do like factories, didn't know what I wanted to do. So I put off the decision and went into consulting for a couple of years. And it turns out what I was doing in consulting, it was tech consulting, it was actually product management. And so after I got tired of traveling, I went to a company in Chicago and did product management for trading firms, derivatives trading, and then to Relativity. And so it was like I just kind of ended up in it, and it wasn't a thing, I don't think, 20 years ago when I started product management. It's really just been exploding, and now it's such a important like job, and I'm seeing so much more classes in undergraduate and everything about it. But back then it wasn't it wasn't as big a role as it is today.
Absolutely. I actually, my pivot was from marketing to product marketing into product management. So it was completely not like a linear path at all. Liza, have you always wanted to be in the role that you're at? Like, what was your journey and what inspired you to get into tech?
Yeah, I have a very winding path. Probably makes no sense to most people that see it. I was a mechanical engineer in school, then went into strategy consulting, then joined Relativity on the strategy and business operations team, then pivoted to be the chief of staff for the CIO, focused mostly on the operations and support of our cloud product, and then pivoted into engineering leadership. So not a developer by trade, and obviously I've been on a pretty, at the time felt like random path, now makes a little bit more sense to get here. I think that what I sort of kept drawing me into the next role was loving the people that I was working with and solving really complicated, challenging problems. And so I personally love actually being in engineering, not being an engineer, because I think there's a challenge for me to figure out how am I going to add value when I'm not going to ever be hands-on keyboard, and sort of thinking about how I can bring my unique perspective to ultimately build a better product, knowing that's going to be the untraditional route. So it's been a very rewarding career path for me, and it's kept it very interesting and challenging, trying to find sort of where I fit.
I love that. And always makes sense, you know, in retrospect, when you look back and you're like, oh, that skill makes sense now. It all adds up. Desiree, what about you?
Sure. So my background is actually primarily in finance. My undergraduate degree was in finance, and I worked for a while in a number of financial firms. So my first job was auditing, and I didn't think that was my calling. So then I did some stock analysis and mutual fund analysis for a fintech firm for a while. And really the reason I fell into product management, and this is before it was even called product management, perhaps I'm revealing my age here, where it was out of a business need, where at that firm that I was working with, we acquired a firm, and there was a need to understand how we actually develop solutions out of that. And then similarly, at that same time, we were shipping what I call CDs. So the way that our services was essentially providing ratings for investments, and the way that we would send those ratings and actually information about stocks, mutual funds, et cetera, would be through a CD in a mail every month. So we'd compile all that data and send a CD. And there was a need for the business to shift and understand, like, okay, how do we change into the world of the internet, right, at that point in time, and how do we deliver this service that's a little bit more dynamic? And that's where I became part of, I think at that point in time, it was actually called a product development manager, because there wasn't a product manager standard role. And I became part of that team that helped put together sort of that initial MVP, if you will, of providing mutual fund information in a digital form. And I found that very exciting. And I spent years doing that. And then I shifted in different parts of the business doing the same thing. And then I realized, oh, this is product management. And the reason I love it is because I can quickly come up with an idea or come up with like solutions to very complex problems and execute on that and be empowered and work with a team and do that fairly quickly in a way that's easy to do and validate very, very quickly with clients and see the impact of my work. That's very rewarding in a very short period of time as well. So that's what I love about product.
I absolutely love your story, and it's amazing. It's so inspiring to learn about your journeys into tech. Lastly, Rashmi, I know you briefly touched upon how you pivoted from QA into program management, but just want to know on the whole, like your entire journey, if you could just share it, that'll be awesome too.
Yeah, sure. Like others, I have an unconventional path too. I studied electrical engineering. Then decided I'm going to do IT. So I started as a tester, did quality assurance / testing for almost 10 years. And, while I was doing, I did all my PMP certifications, but I never took the leap. But then one fine day I said, a lot of people kept saying that I have good organizational skills, people management skills, all that. So I decided, let me try program management. And yeah, I am loving every moment of what I'm doing. So that's
awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing that. Ramona, back to you. Are there any more questions?
We got a question about, do you consider hiring people straight out of college who do not have much professional experience yet, but have education experience instead? I think this is a common pattern that we're seeing in the questions, is like, how do you apply for these jobs that require experience? Like, seems like a lot of people are interested in these jobs and they just want to know how to stand out. So even if that question extends to what is going to help standing out any individual, like when you're going through the hiring process?
I think it's utilizing that coursework and some of the projects that you're doing in the coursework to explain your experience. And so, I've heard from intern applicants who, they're on a team and they choose the product role versus the other roles they could have. And they explain why they chose it. And then they explain the project and what they did. And so I think you can look for those opportunities within the classroom setting to showcase what you did. You can also look at your school groups and ways to get involved in the school groups that show that have opportunity to showcase these skills. So whether it's like tech groups, or I think there's quite a few product things from the interns that are applying, like keep hearing about product groups and all sorts of things that are spinning up. So I think there's a lot of ways to demonstrate the interest in this area, which is key, as well as some of the skills that you need. And then you can also, look for internships, before applying to, full-time roles and internships that, I definitely look at for full-time hires, like what kind of internships have they had the opportunity to do?
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking that up. We got one final question, which is, what are some things, I guess, you do in your free time to improve your product management skills? If you're still thinking about product management in your free time, would love to know the answer to this question.
Okay, I'm gonna admit, in my free time, I do not spend a lot of time thinking about product management, but I do. Oh, you guys, I have my fake background now, but behind me, I have a bunch of books that are more about like leadership, business management, and like kind of like broader big picture topics. And I like those, and I like the stories in them, like seeing how companies and leaders did things to learn and grow. So that's kind of the area that I'm focused on right now. Not as much product management, but I think that's still a good skill set to grow. but more kind of like reading stories and learning from stories of other people in business, in leadership settings.
Yeah, I'm similar to Andrea. I don't really have a lot. I have 2 kids. I don't have a lot of time to actually read physical books. I do a lot of like listening on Audible. I know there's a ton of like product management books out there, but right now my focus has been a lot more on like learning about how other companies have transformed. And there's tons of books out there that are like part fiction, but also part truth that I found very exciting to read these days. And the other thing I've tried to do, which it's been hard to find free time, but I did this last winter and I found it very helpful, is taking online classes just to have that additional networking with people that I normally don't get to meet anymore because of the pandemic. So I've taken some classes at Stanford. They offer some free classes, and also now classes that are typically only offered in person and are offered virtually. So they have tons of like leadership classes, even like fun classes like improv that you can take. That's fun. And you get to meet a lot of other folks as well that have similar backgrounds. So I found that very helpful.
That's awesome. Quick time check. We are almost at time. So one last question before we start wrapping up, and perhaps this can be taken as the wrap-up question. Interviewing is really an exhausting process sometimes. So any words of like motivation or advice from any of you for those who are going through the process, how to, what should their state of mind be? And, given that there's so much competition and so much of like rejection, and just any thoughts there, if anybody wants to jump in.
My biggest advice for that is my successes with interviews have always been when I've been myself and I've been 100% authentic. There's typically a natural inclination because you have a lot of pressure and you want to, be 100%, polished and perfect, to go through and do a lot of preparations. But most of the time, if you have done your preparation and just be yourself and present yourself and demonstrate your skill set, I think it'll come a long way and be authentic.
Love that. Anybody else who wants to jump in here?
I agree with that. I don't know if I can say it better or than that, but in terms of, it's also the two-way street. You have something to offer and you will find a good fit. It may not be your first opportunity or your second opportunity. I'm sure all of us could tell stories about like when you went for that job and you didn't get it, but things turned out well and you found another opportunity that was a good fit. And so that's why I like to think about it as like a two-way street. Like if it doesn't work out, well then, maybe that wasn't the right company for you. I can remember getting rejected from some of the strategic consulting jobs I applied for. And I was like, oh, thank God. I don't think I would have liked that looking now that I know in hindsight, but I made it in the tech consulting jobs, and so like that helped point me in the direction of what I should be doing in a nice way that, so like turning that like rejection or, didn't go how I wanted into the right path for me. And hopefully folks find it's not an exhausting process. I think the market's good out there right now. So it's about finding the right fit for your skill set and your interest.
Thank you so much. Jenny, do you want to jump in and, say a few words or drop a few links for us before we wrap up?
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to say thanks so much again for everyone who attended today. I'll definitely add a link to our website again. And thank you to Products by Women for hosting and to all of our panelists as well.
Yes. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thanks to the attendees. Thanks, Ramona. Thanks, everyone. We will be sending a recording and all of this information via email. So do stay tuned for that. Thank you again. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.